Islam Makhachev has officially vacated the UFC lightweight title, setting the stage for a highly anticipated welterweight showdown against current champion Della Maddalena. While the UFC has yet to confirm a date for the bout, speculation around the venue is already heating up, with both fighters expressing a clear preference for Madison Square Garden. Makhachev, long considered one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the sport, recently shared his desire to compete in what he called the biggest arena for MMA and boxing. Speaking about the possibility of headlining at MSG, the Dagestani fighter explained, "I asked Dana if we have some opportunity to fight in Madison Square Garden. It would be an honor for me to fight in the biggest arena. Legendary arena. This would be a fitting backdrop for what could be the most high-profile fight of Makhachev's career to date." He's been a reliable headliner for the UFC on major international cards, especially in Abu Dhabi, where he's fought several times in recent years. However, his manager, Ali Abdelaziz, recently revealed that the promotion has other plans for the October Abu Dhabi event. According to Abdelaziz, the headliner in the UAE will instead be a light heavyweight title rematch between Ariel Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev. That means Makhachev's next bout will take place elsewhere, and Abdelaziz offered a strong hint as to where. Speaking on the Pound for Pound podcast, he said, "This fight is not going to be in Abu Dhabi. Islam Makhachev is not going to be in Abu Dhabi, I can tell you. It would take place in the US in a big arena, one of the biggest arenas on the planet." Madison Square Garden has become a symbolic location for the UFC, often playing host to some of its most historic fights. And Makhachev's opponent, Della Maddalena, appears to be just as enthusiastic about the venue. Following his recent win over Belal Muhammad, the Australian star echoed Makhachev's sentiments, saying that headlining MSG would be a dream scenario. With both fighters aligned in their preference, and UFC President Dana White known for loving a big moment in a big venue, a Madison Square Garden main event for Makhachev versus Della Maddalena seems like more than just wishful thinking. It could be exactly what's next. All that remains is for the UFC to make it official. Charles Oliveira has opened up about the mistakes he made in his UFC 317 title fight against Ilia Topuria, admitting that he strayed far from his game plan and paid the price for it. The bout, which headlined the UFC 317 card, saw Oliveira briefly bring the fight to the ground, a place where he's long been considered one of the most dangerous in the sport. However, the action returned to the feet almost immediately, and it didn't take long for Topuria to land a devastating combination that ended the fight. A clean right hand followed by a left put Oliveira out cold, handing Topuria a highlight reel knockout win and the championship belt. In the days following the event, Oliveira reflected on what went wrong. Speaking in an interview with AgFight via MMA Junkie, the former lightweight champion admitted that the loss wasn't due to a bad training camp, but rather his inability to execute the plan he had carefully crafted. "I would change everything," Oliveira said. "Not in my training camp, but in the fight. Everything I trained, I didn't put into practice. I didn't do anything I trained." He implemented his strategy and became champion. Oliveira detailed the strategy he had in place, one focused on movement, striking at angles, and disrupting Topuria's rhythm with a variety of kicks and footwork. The plan was to hit and get out, step on his knees, use hand sequences to be able to kick high to the head, maintain distance with my front kicks. I had trained a lot of calf kicks, a lot of knee stomps, not standing still, he said. And then the fight started. I stood still, taking blows. The former champ admitted that his own actions frustrated him far more than the loss itself. Knowing he had trained the right techniques but froze in the moment made the defeat even harder to digest. "There are things I should have done, but didn't. That's what frustrates me the most. Having trained so hard for something, and not having done it in the fight." Oliveira also gave credit where it was due, acknowledging the sheer power of Topuria's strikes. While he shared the cage with hard-hitting fighters like Dustin Porier, Justin Gaethje, and Michael Chandler, he said Topuria's punching power stood out above the rest. What's next for the Brazilian standout is unclear. While he's still among the elite in the division, many believe the best move is for him to take time to recover, recalibrate, and make sure he's mentally and physically ready before stepping back into the octagon. The UFC has reportedly released 4 more fighters from its roster in the latest round of cuts, a routine but tough aspect of the fight business that reminds fans how competitive the sport truly is. With a constantly evolving roster and a steady influx of new talent, the UFC often has to make difficult decisions about which fighters to retain. While some athletes break into the top 15 and build long-term careers, others fall short of expectations, and in those cases the promotion doesn't hesitate to make changes. According to MMA reporter Al Zolino, the following 4 fighters have now been removed from the UFC roster. Trevin Giles. Once considered a promising talent, Giles exits the promotion following a 3-fight losing streak. His most recent outing ended in a loss to Mike Malott. He was scheduled to face Andreas Gustafsson after that, but the fight was cancelled when Giles suffered a fall and hit his head backstage. That unfortunate incident appears to have marked the end of his UFC run. Viviane Araujo. Araujo had her moments during her UFC tenure, securing several notable wins that kept her in the women's flyweight rankings for a stretch. However, inconsistency caught up with her, and she finishes with a UFC record of 7-6. Her most recent performance was a decision loss to rising contender Tracy Cortez. Jordan Vucenic. The British featherweight had a tough go during his short stint in the UFC. He debuted against Guram Kutateladze and put on a competitive fight but came up short. That was followed by a surprising submission loss to Chris Duncan. With an 0-2 UFC record, Vucenic has been shown the door. Ange Loosa. Loosa managed a 2-3 run in the promotion. He was known for being tough and durable, and in his final fight, he had his moments against Phil Rowe before getting knocked out. Despite flashes of potential, it wasn't enough to secure his spot on the roster long-term. While each of these fighters had bright spots in their UFC careers, the promotion's high standards leave little room for prolonged struggles. For many of them, this release could lead to opportunities in other major organizations, where they may rebuild momentum and potentially earn another shot in the future. UFC 319 could mark the final time Khamzat Chimaev steps into the octagon, as growing concerns around his health and external pressures are reportedly pushing him toward an early retirement. According to rising middleweight contender Caio Borralho, who spoke with MMA Today, there have been behind-the-scenes conversations suggesting that Chimaev may hang up his gloves if he captures the UFC middleweight title in his upcoming bout against Dricus du Plessis. The fight is scheduled to headline UFC 319 on August 16, 2025, at the United Center in Chicago. "I heard somewhere, some people saying that if he wins the belt he's gonna retire," Borralho said. "I think so. There's some little talks, some whispers about that. If he wins the belt, he retires. I'm not sure of that, I don't know if I believe that or not, but it's an option." Chimaev has been dealing with unspecified health issues that have reportedly affected his ability to train and compete at the level he's used to. These health struggles have been ongoing since at least 2021, when he publicly contemplated retirement after severe complications from COVID-19. Alongside the physical strain, Borralho noted that Chimaev faces heavy pressure from his home country, and with substantial financial security already in place, retirement could make sense. "He has a lot of money already," Borralho added. "A lot of money. He's good with money. He'll already be champion, so why not retire? I would do the same." While nothing is confirmed, the speculation adds a layer of intrigue to Chimaev's long-awaited title shot. The undefeated fighter has remained a dominant presence in both the welterweight and middleweight divisions, but his inactivity in recent years and repeated delays have raised questions about his long-term future in the sport. Borralho, currently ranked number 6 in the middleweight division, has his own stakes tied to UFC 319. He's set to fight Nassourdine Imavov, in a 5-round title eliminator at UFC Paris on September 6, just weeks after Chimaev's bout. With the middleweight belt potentially becoming vacant soon after UFC 319, Braulio's showdown in Paris could carry even greater significance. Whether Chimaev retires or not, UFC 319 may be a turning point not just for his career, but for the entire middleweight division. Ariel Pereira is set to make history as the youngest female fighter to ever step into the UFC octagon. According to multiple sources with knowledge of the promotion's plans, Pereira will make her UFC debut against Montserrat Rendon at Noche UFC 3, which is scheduled for September 13th at the Frost Bank Center in San Antonio, Texas. The 19-year-old confirmed the matchup herself via social media. Undefeated as a professional, Pereira has quickly gained attention for her aggressive style and finishing ability. Most recently, she claimed the Cage Masters FC bantamweight title with a hard-fought decision win over seasoned veteran Samara Santos, who had 21 pro fights under her belt. Just days after that victory, UFC matchmaker Mick Maynard personally informed Pereira via FaceTime that she had been signed directly to the promotion. Known as Golden Girl, Pereira brings not only youth but momentum into her UFC debut. Her signing reflects the UFC's growing trend of recruiting rising stars early in their careers to build future title contenders. Her opponent, Monster Rendon, returns for her third UFC appearance. After winning her promotional debut against Tamiris Vidal, she dropped the decision to Daria Železniakova in March 2024 at UFC Vegas 89. Now, after an 18-month layoff, Rendon will look to re-establish herself in the division by halting the rise of the much-hyped newcomer. Noche UFC 3 will also feature a high-stakes featherweight main event between former title challenger Diego Lopes and rising contender Jean Silva, making the event one of the more anticipated fight nights of the year. Max Holloway has voiced his clear enthusiasm for the possibility of fighting at the rumored UFC White House card, should the ambitious event actually come together. The former featherweight kingpin is currently gearing up for one of the most significant matchups of his career, a bout against Dustin Porier at UFC 318 in New Orleans. This fight will serve as Poirier's farewell to the sport, and it marks the third time these two legends will meet inside the octagon. Holloway is looking to finally notch a win over the Diamond, who currently holds a 2-0 advantage in their head-to-head series. Following a recent knockout loss to Ilia Topuria, Holloway is more motivated than ever to rebound and prove he's still among the elite. As talk surrounding a potential UFC event at the White House continues to circulate, sparked by an announcement made by President Donald Trump, Holloway has become one of the first fighters to publicly throw his name into the hat for the card. And he did so in classic Blessed fashion, with humor, confidence, and a sense of grounded excitement. On the lawn, bro? You know what I mean? My first ever amateur kickboxing fight was on a lawn, Holloway told MMA Junkie during a conversation facilitated by Stake.com. Why not headline a fight at the White House on the lawn? Would be ridiculous. That'd be huge, that'd be cool. Holloway didn't stop there. He also suggested a unique incentive that could make the event even more appealing for fighters, particularly those mindful of post-fight pay deductions. Getting to be able to do that would be huge, Holloway added. Then maybe they do something like, on the bonuses you don't pay taxes or something. Instead of taking money, just say no taxes for this year for the performance of the night winner. Hell yeah, please. With his all-action style, massive fan base, and proven track record on the big stage, Holloway would be a natural fit to headline an event as bold and high-profile as a UFC card held on the White House lawn. Whether the event actually materializes remains to be seen, but there's no doubt Holloway is ready and eager to be a part of it, especially if it offers him a shot at redemption, a memorable stage, and maybe even a tax-free bonus. Former NCAA Division I national champion Bo Nickal is set to return to his wrestling roots as he prepares to face three-time NCAA All-American Jacob Cardenas at the inaugural Real American Freestyle (RAF01) event. The highly anticipated showdown will take place on Saturday, August 30, 2025 at the Wolstein Center in Cleveland, Ohio. RAF is the newly launched freestyle wrestling promotion, co-founded by WWE Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan and former WCW executive producer Eric Bischoff. The promotion aims to blend elite wrestling with high-end storytelling and production, bringing a fresh take to competitive freestyle wrestling. We set out to make history with Real American Freestyle, and with these matches, we're doing just that, said RAF COO Izzy Martinez. We've got the best wrestlers, the best promoters, the best storytellers, the best production, and the best team, and we're going to give audiences the thrill of a lifetime on August 30th with RAF01. Nickal, 7-1 in MMA, will enter the match after suffering his first professional MMA defeat, a second-round stoppage loss to Reinier de Ridder at UFC Des Moines in May. Though he remains unranked in the UFC middleweight division, Nickal continues to draw significant attention thanks to his decorated wrestling pedigree and high-level athleticism. As Dustin Porier gears up for his final walk to the octagon at UFC 318 on July 19th in New Orleans, the beloved lightweight contender is taking a lighthearted approach to life after fighting. In a recent interview with ESPN, Porier opened up about his post-retirement goals, and one comment in particular quickly caught the attention of fans. Porier, who faces Max Holloway in what will be the third meeting between the two fan favorites, is treating this bout as his last. Win, lose, or draw, the Diamond has made it clear that he plans to hang up the gloves after UFC 318, and he already has some amusing ideas about what comes next. "This will be the last time I'm ever 155 pounds in my life," Porier said with a smile. "Once USADA stops knocking on my door and I lay the gloves down, I'm getting jacked. I'm getting on steroids." Delivered with his trademark grin, the comment was clearly tongue-in-cheek, but it reflects a real truth. Retirement means freedom from strict weight cuts, drug testing, and the everyday pressures of elite competition. For Porier, who has long trained with discipline and dedication, the idea of being able to focus purely on fitness without having to meet a number on the scale is an exciting one. Of course, Porier has always been viewed as a consummate professional in the sport, a fighter who rose through the ranks not just on talent, but through perseverance, humility, and hard work. So while the steroids comment may have raised a few eyebrows, it's likely just a playful nod to the freedom he'll enjoy once he's no longer under the microscope of athletic commissions and drug testing agencies. UFC 318 is already a historic night in the making. It marks the end of an era for Porier, who debuted in the UFC over a decade ago and has since become one of the most respected names in MMA. His accolades include a former interim lightweight title and victories over some of the sport's biggest stars: Conor McGregor twice, Justin Gaethje, Eddie Alvarez, Michael Chandler, Anthony Pettis, and Jim Miller, to name a few. His two previous victories over Holloway, the first via submission at featherweight and the second in a 5-round war for the interim lightweight title, give him confidence heading into their final clash. But the fight is more than just a rubber match. It's a farewell performance in front of his home crowd in Louisiana, a moment he's long dreamed of. While his competitive fighting days may be ending, Porier's presence in the MMA world is unlikely to fade. Whether through his charity work, business ventures like Louisiana Hot Sauce, or future roles in the sport, coaching, commentating, or otherwise, fans will almost certainly still see plenty of him. And, who knows, maybe they'll even see a jacked version of Porier enjoying life, free of the scale and the grind. One thing's for sure. After July 19th, he's earned the right to joke, relax, and live on his own terms.